Hey, this is Franco Perez from Franco Mobile Homes. If you want to learn how to use small acts to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Acts podcast with my good friend Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Acts podcast. I want to show you how to use your small acts to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. Okay, Small Acts community, what's going on? This is Nico, your boy, your host, and today I'm hanging out with a guy named Franco Perez. He connected with me on the Facebook and LinkedIn, and we connected because he's got some knowledge that I wanted to hear about mobile homes and affordable housing, and this guy's a pro. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome him onto the show, and then we're going to get his story, his journey, and we're going to ask him some awesome questions, and then you're going to be able to reach out to him too. So Franco, what's up, man?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on here today. You know, my listeners typically strictly multifamily people, but I've had some mobile home interests across the board, from many different people. So really interesting stuff, and affordable housing interests me as well. So let's jump into it, man. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes to kind of tell us your story, your journey, and how you got to where you are today, that would be great.
Sure. So I grew up kind of as a small kid from the Philippines, migrated over to California from there, was put in a weird situation where my parents split up when I was about 17 years old. My dad was the main breadwinner and he left the country. And then I was left with my younger sister and my single mom that didn't work at the time. From there, I remember how hard it was as a struggle to have to not go to school and work full time. And I still remember today the pain at every single month, at the end of the month, trying to make ends meet just to pay rent. And from there, I was borrowing from friends. I was even borrowing from my boss to just get money to pay for rent. And I remember thinking, like, why is it so difficult for people like me? You know, I feel like I'm a good guy, good person, but this is such a hard, difficult thing just to even survive. From there, I got into real estate, became an agent for a while, did that for a while. Didn't love real estate, but it got me to be able to understand how real estate works. I didn't like real estate because in my eyes, it kind of became a thing to where I was just helping the wealthiest people I could find the most expensive properties that they could. And I really wanted to find a way to develop a business that would help people that were in my shoes, that were struggling at the end of every month as well, the hardworking class that really need an equal opportunity for housing as well. So seeked about other ventures. I tried working for the government for a little bit. I didn't like that at all. And then I came across mobile home parks on accident, and I come to find out they're so misunderstood. And I think that's why there's always a lot of interest in it. It's a misunderstood asset class. There's a lot of bad stigmas around it. There's a lot of bad myths around it, but there's a lot of mobile homes and mobile home parks in so many different metro areas like San Jose, LA, San Diego, and they're underutilized, but they're in prime locations. So I came about to start a business that really helped people get out of that rent cycle and start owning mobile homes, and found for it to be a perfect financial tool for them. And then we got into converting these very old mobile homes and turned them from 700 square foot to 1,500 square foot, beautiful luxury style homes. And then since then, we kind of took off from there and kept building and improving these parks and improving these mobile homes in these communities. And that's kind of what got us to where we're at today.
Wow, man. So mobile homes in California, You typically, you mentioned it there when you were talking that there's some stigma involved, right? It kind of people think of when you think mobile home, you think of, poor, right? It's just what we think of, unfortunately. And I've been to some really nice mobile home parks. Um, so it's not always true. But you mentioned in there that you are helping people buy. Is that the case? Like, are people owning these mobile homes, or are you renting them out, or are they like, how are you running your business?
Yeah, so basically they are an owner of the mobile home entity itself. So in a lot of our areas in California, there's zones specifically for low income housing. And what's cool about it is that they want, every person in these communities actually own their unit. So they have a good investment in their property with pride of ownership, and which allows for them to really take care of their mobile home itself. And you mentioned, that there's different styles of mobile home parks. What most people think, like you said, is they think a very poor area. They think Breaking Bad. They think what Hollywood portrays mobile home parks to look, because that's all that people really have to relate to it. But just like apartments, there's bad apartments where you don't want kids going around, and then there's beautiful luxury style apartments, right? And that's kind of the same spectrum with mobile homes. There's bad mobile home parks, and there's beautiful resort like mobile home communities, right? So that's one thing to think about as well. But yeah, primarily they'll own the unit above the ground, and they don't own the land itself. So they do pay a lease inside these mobile home parks. But the key is understanding how that works and how the owners can benefit, and how that model can help get someone to start their wealth building journey.
Awesome, Franco. Do mobile homes leave the mobile home park, or are they basically fixed there and stationary? They're not RVs, right?
Yeah, these aren't RVs. And that's what's interesting about it. They don't actually nowadays. So before they were pretty mobile, and that was kind of the intent for it to be temporary housing. But the homes that we're building now today are really built just enough to be classified as a mobile home so that it doesn't have to be considered technically real estate, but we build them as permanent as could be. We actually build it to HUD code. So you have full 2x4 exteriors, you have drywall throughout, fireproof fiber cement exteriors, and these really look as beautiful as you can imagine a new construction build being built today.
It's so interesting, man. And so I've looked at mobile home parks. So okay, let me backtrack for a second. My sole focus is multifamily. However, we all get the shiny object syndrome, and I've looked at and heard so many great things about mobile parks and even self storage and all this other stuff. And I tried dabbling in underwriting mobile home parks at one point, and I just didn't know enough to be dangerous. So I ended up backing off and telling myself I can't look at them until I really solidify my career in multifamily. But it was really interesting. And one mobile home operator, told me that and you're going to correct me here because I don't know, or you're going to give me the answer. I forget if you want to have a park owned mobile homes, or you want to have the tenant own them. And I think that it should be tenant owned. Is that correct? Is that more profitable? Is that better for everybody involved?
That is correct for the owner side of things. And it's actually better for both sides, that you're creating equal opportunity. The zoning makes it better as well. So for the residents to own, you have that shared pride of ownership because they have an investment in the property. Guess what? They know that they have to abide by the rules of the community. They take care of their home. We all know that you have a rental situation. Usually you'll end up with a huge majority of tenants that don't take care of the unit themselves. So if we're talking about from the mobile home park owners perspective, keep in mind anything inside the home, whether it's a toilet that's broken, a sink, a roof issue, all of these things are then eliminated from the problem of the park owner's perspective, because it's the homeowner that takes care of all these issues. So all that the park owner operator has to deal with is really just the landscaping, the land elements and the amenities of the mobile home park, and no longer have to really deal with the residents themselves and also the home units themselves as well. And it's kind of a shared risk and shared involvement and shared growth model for all parties.
Yeah,
Plus
that's
the
great.
entities love it as well.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. Something about the entity.
Oh, plus the municipalities and the cities love it as well, because it creates, like I mentioned, that stepping stone opportunity for, like, if you imagine the teachers, the construction workers that are living in these cities, they have a chance for ownership and they have a chance to build equity. And part of those myths that we talk about is that a lot of these mobile homes are appreciating in value. You're able to get loans, you're able to build equity, and you really start to get your first asset that you get to own, right? And this is a great tool for so many people that want to get out of renting and can't afford a full-on real estate investment right away.
Are these, I'm assuming they're more affordable, and is there some sort of program to help people get involved, or maybe how do people get to own these? How does that work?
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of why people own them. And then, so from that, if you imagine there's, in our area in California, these numbers are going to be much higher than most of the country. But if you imagine renting a 2-bedroom apartment in San Jose is about $3,500 a month. Buying a single family home is median price is $1.6 million, right? So, which is a huge gap in between. Now, these numbers could be different in Texas or any other state, but there's usually a big gap in between. Now, there's a lot of people that are renting that really can't feel it's possible to ever buy a piece of real estate because it's so far of a reach. Now, if you have a mobile home like in our area, again, these prices are higher than most of the areas, but it would be about $350,000. And with that, it's more attainable. Instead of buying a single family home, putting $250K down, having an $8,000 payment, I can instead put $30,000 down, and my payment would be in total about $3,800. And I don't have to have a huge increase in pay. I don't have to have a huge down payment, and I can just keep going on with my life. And over the course of 5 years, you have appreciation, you have tax benefits, you have something that you've paid down and something that you can sell. Through our case study, the difference is about $90,000 after 5 years when you compare it to renting. So with that, you can sell and then use that money and sell it and purchase something like a townhouse or single family home. And that's what we've been helping people do. But to answer your question, so they'll typically go to an entity like us, figure out how they can get finance, whether it's 10% down, whatever it is, what's the income requirements, and they'll get usually about a 20 to 25-year loan for these homes inside these mobile home parks.
That's a really interesting model, Franco, because now I'm seeing from the side is obviously the benefit from the tenant, right? Or the homeowner, right? Because they are now homeowners. It's a stepping stone. It's like we call it starter homes, right? Which is necessary for our society. Now, I'm also seeing a benefit from the side of you as an operator, because you're not looking at short-term leases. You're not even looking at yearly leases. It might be longer than that based on what you're telling me. So how does that work?
Yeah. So basically, the way the leases work, it's really, they commit to a lease. So a tenant that's purchasing a mobile home, they commit to a lease that's tied to pretty much as the length that they'll own that home itself, right? So on average, they'll live here for about 5 to 7 years. And then throughout that period, keep in mind, when a tenant / resident has money involved in that home itself, in that mobile home park space, because they have such a big investment in it, they're of course going to always pay their rent on time, right? It's you have way less defaults, you have more consistent payments, because guess what? If they get bad terms with the park owner, they have a big chance of losing their whole investment in that home itself, right? So with that being said, your tenants are way easier to work with. You have less evictions of that sort or anything like that, because it's going to be very costly for the owner itself to try to remove that home, and it's a bigger risk for the owner as well if they can't keep up with their payments. So I might have lost my train of thought to your question, but from that, it really does, it's kind of like what I talked about, where it's a shared risk to both, but also a shared benefit to both because they're both generally invested in that location.
Yeah, excellent, man. So what is like the typical length of stay for a resident?
Like about 5 to 7 years.
See, that's awesome, man. And then my follow-up question to that would be like, what is a typical expense ratio when you're analyzing a deal like this?
An expense ratio to the park itself, or do you mean to the
For you
homeowner?
as an operator, like are expenses 50% or are they more or less than that?
Oh, I see. So it does differ. It's different per area, but usually you want the owner's DTI to be under 45%. So, in the more expensive areas, you'll want it there. Sometimes you'll allow for them to be 55% as far as the
Oh,
housing payment goes. Is that
oh,
what you meant?
no, but that's a great answer too, because you're talking about underwriting the prospective resident, which yeah, debt to income is extremely important, and it's crazy that you know all that information too. But for you as an owner operator of the park itself, when we look at analyze like a multifamily property, typically we're punching in about a 50% expense ratio. So like if the income is $1 million, we're going to assume 500 of that is going to be expenses yearly. Is that similar to how it is in a mobile home?
It is pretty similar, but to be honest with you, there is such a wide spectrum of different types of investors. We have a lot of hedge funds going into this just for long-term holds. We have a lot of mobile home parks that need a ton of value adds and a lot of work. And then you have a lot of low cap mobile home parks that could be a negative cash flow, but they hold on to it longer as part of their portfolio, right? So it's really a wide spectrum. And it's tough for me to answer that because each deal should be looked at very differently, which I would imagine in your world that there's kind of a similar kind of thing, but
Yep. And because you're working with lower income housing per se, right? Do you get any tax advantages, tax credits, tax abatements, or anything to help you guys out?
not yet. There aren't a lot of like grants or anything like that to help out with this. We are currently working on, I'm actually in DC right now on to lobby for better funding for this. So we're trying to showcase really how beautiful this entity is and how it's helping, like you said, society. But there will be soon.
Cool, man. It's exciting stuff. Now, when you mentioned in the beginning affordable housing, is that this mobile home park or is it separate? Is it like multifamily apartments?
It's really just mobile home parks.
Cool, man. And my next follow-up question is, you guys are focusing primarily on California for mobile homes. Now, are there a good amount of them, and who are you competing against to buy these? Or are you building them? Because I think you might have mentioned that as well.
Yeah, so our company really loves to collaborate with different entities. So I wouldn't even say our industry is very close knit, and there's really not a lot of competitors, I'd say. So we really try to help consult park owners that are either purchasing or own families already, or own family communities already. And then from there, how do we help raise the bar and deliver more value into their communities by putting in newer homes and that sort of thing into their parks. And then we help with the retail end. So with that, it's kind of interesting, but we just try to be the all around everything when it comes to help with mobile home parks and mobile home residents. That's really our niche and what we work in.
Cool, man. And you mentioned in there also in the beginning, you're talking about going from like a 700 square foot and essentially doubling it to 1,500 square foot mobile home. How does that work? Is it modular? Is it built on site? What is it taking the same frame and just punching out a wall, or how does that work?
Yeah, so basically, we'll take an old 70s unit, like a 700 square foot home, and we'll try our best to either recycle, reuse, or that sort of thing. But ultimately, we'll remove or demolish that whole home, and then we'll retrofit according to that lot. What's the biggest amount of square footage home that we can fit in this mobile home space, right? And from there, we'll design a unit and we'll build this in factory. So these are built in similar factories like modular homes are built. And because it's built in a factory, we can build it very cost effective and at a faster rate and a much better, it's actually way better for the environment as well, less carbon footprint, less material, and that sort of thing. So if you imagine, like, cars were only really built for the rich before until it was built on an assembly line at scale. And that's exactly what we're doing now, is when we're building these end to end in a factory, we're drastically dropping the cost that it takes to build a home for the resident in the end. So these are built in a factory setting. And if that's one of the big things that we do on our YouTube channel, we showcase factories and how they're building these homes very effectively and that sort of thing.
Wow, man. Is there a certain model that you guys just like structure, size or bedroom count or square foot? I know we mentioned 1,500. Is there a certain model that works excellent for the parks that you're working with?
Yeah, that really is our median square footage, is about 1,400 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We have a model with these great, we call it the great room in the front, where the living room, the kitchen, and the dining area is all in that front space, which is perfect for entertaining. But yeah, there's several different models that we'll build, and you should definitely see because you really can't believe it until you see these videos, and even better if you see it in person. But the level of quality that we build these, we have full waterfall quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, and laminate throughout. And we always try to push what's possible when it comes to building these homes.
That's incredible, man. I like that. And Franco, is there a typical, so when I'm looking at a property, I'm looking at whether or not there's well water, is there a septic system, or we're getting water from the city? How does that work? Or is it different at every property with you?
It's mostly in the California market. You'll see a lot of connection to the city utilities and that sort of thing. But I do know over in the East Coast and middle of the country, there are a lot of septic systems and there are troubles with utilities. But usually in a lot of where we work, which is in these metro markets, you'll find just your typical utility system through the city.
Awesome. And if you are dealing with some older mobile homes, like you mentioned, the 70s in there, is there sometimes any issues with electric, or are you just planning on going in and essentially, revamping all of them?
Well, the ultimate goal is, everyone's financial profile is different. If you can afford going to a new one, that's what we will recommend, right? Because the way they were built in the 70s, there's a lot of risks. They aren't as fireproof. The insulation isn't as great. The plumbing is subpar, and the electrical system is really sometimes dangerous. But I never talk down any older homes or that sort of thing, because that might be the perfect fit for a certain family that can't afford a nicer, newer home, right? So there are people that this is their first piece of ownership in an old unit, even if it's a 700 square foot 1964 home. This could be everything to them, right? And then from there, it's usually, I like to think of it as stages. Like, hey, you own an old, smaller one first. You can upgrade it to a newer one when you're after 3 to 4 years, when you're a little more financially secure. And then from there, you can go into the real estate market, because without, like, I keep saying this, but if there's no steps to your improvement, it's very difficult to get ahead in life, right? We're always taught career and education, and that's always the priorities that I was taught when I was younger. But we aren't taught like net worth, asset building, and how do we build wealth, right? And this is what I love about this asset class, is that we're actually helping a lot of people that don't have these opportunities start their journey through mobile homes.
That's so cool, man. And is there like an HOA or something that they have to pay?
Yeah, so basically it's that space rent, that lot rent. It includes that HOA. So it's going to vary per area. In our market in the Bay, it's typically about $1,000 or so. That's when I was saying those payments. Basically, your mortgage is about 24 to 2,800, and then you have a space rent for the lot that includes the HOA of the amenities of the swimming pool, the spas, the gyms. And these communities, the lifestyle in these communities are also really nice too. People actually prefer it because you're not sharing walls with an apartment neighbor or condo neighbor, and you also have a little bit of a yard as well.
Oh man, Franco, that's so cool. We need more of that in the world. So thank you for doing what you do, man. Let me get you. I'm going to hit you with my final question, and then we're going to get some form of contacting you because I'm interested in learning more, and I'm sure that my listeners are as well. So here's the final question. Franco,
Yeah.
let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You have great grandchildren and they are super happy. They want to write a book about you to honor you and your life. Either what would you want them to title this book, or what kind of personal characteristical traits would you like them to highlight about you in this book?
I think it's a very tough one. I love that question. I'd say something around equal on opportunity. I'd say something about pursue impact. I think a lot of people out there really chase starting a business around making money, building wealth and that sort of thing. But I think for me, one thing that's really true to giving me energy is really pursuing not the money, but pursuing a model that really helped people that were in my shoes, kind of like a sense of philanthropy, kind of a, how do you chase creating an impact for others? So I'd say something like pursuing impact, or I think maybe that should be the book. Now you're making me want to write a book.
That's a really cool title, man. Pursuing impact. And that's what it's all about, man. We have to help the world. We can't just be selfish people. And I can see that you are not. I appreciate you, Franco, and our conversation today. This has been really, really wonderful. So let's get the listeners some form of contacting you.
Oh, yeah. So all of our links are at www.franco.tv, or you can see our YouTube channel. You just Google Franco Mobile Homes. You can see how these homes were built. You can see the quality of what these look like. You'll be shocked. I mean, if you're just listening to this on the podcast, take a look at our site and you can see really how the 12-foot high ceilings, that sort of thing. It's really amazing and shouldn't be ignored.
Oh, that is so cool, man. I'm going to check it out right after this.
Cool.
All right. Well, yeah. So thank you so much, Franco. I really enjoyed this conversation. You and I are going to keep in touch. And those listening out there, reach out to my man, Franco.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for joining me today.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast, where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.